Chapter 23. Trenton slid in beside a royal blue hybrid SUV in Alannah's driveway. Not recognizing the vehicle, he frowned and turned off the Range Rover's engine. He sat in the darkness, staring at the light behind the drawn drapes of the living room window on the first floor. Maybe he should leave and come back another time. But almost as soon as he had the thought, he changed his mind. He'd been determined to see her, even if it meant waiting out front all night until she let him in. So he'd go through with what he had planned. His heartfelt apology should be even more impactful when done in front of an audience, complete with the bouquet of pink and white carnations he'd picked up at a florist. Taking a deep breath, he exited the SUV and walked up to the door. He shifted the bouquet to the left hand, slid one of his winning smiles into place, and rang the doorbell. Seconds later, the door swung open, and the smile died on his face. A man he'd never seen before, in the flesh at least, stood in the living room. Caucasian, dirty blonde hair, and a surprised expression on his face. Mr. Perfect, Connor Aaron Bodell. Hi, you're Trenton Johnson. Being from a high-profile family, he was accustomed to people knowing who he was, but this greeting irritated him, mainly because Connor was on the inside while Trenton was stuck on the outside. Connor extended his hand. I've heard a lot about you. Trenton took his hand and gave it a few hard pumps. I haven't heard that much about you. Well, Alannah and I haven't been dating long. He looked at the flowers and a frown arrowed between his brows. Who's at the... Alannah had come from the kitchen and stopped talking the minute she saw him. Her features settled into a scowl. What are you doing here? Trenton's gaze passed over the tight jeans, which fit so close they could have been tattooed on her body. The black top she wore wasn't much better, clinging to her small bust and narrow torso. His mouth tightened. Don't you look nice, he said. Her chin jutted out. Thank you. What's he doing here? Her eyes passed over the flowers in his hand, but her expression didn't change. He's an invited guest. You're not. I've never needed an invitation before. Trenton barged in, forcing St. Connor to step out of the way. Trenton and Alannah stared at each other across the living room. Behind him, he heard the door close, and on the television, a French film was playing. Of course. We need to talk, Trenton said. Now is not a good time. Now is the only time I'm available. Alannah let out an exasperated sigh and rolled her eyes. Excuse me, Connor. We'll be able to get back to our evening as soon as I get through with this inconvenient interruption. She shot a dark look at Trenton and then stalked toward the kitchen. Trenton cast a glance over his shoulder at Connor, now seated on the sofa and watching him with a curious expression. He went into the kitchen and found Alannah standing with crossed arms in the middle of the floor. You should have called first, she said in an angry whisper. Why? Obviously because I have company. Why is he here? What do you want? So you're not going to answer my question? I don't owe you an explanation. We're both free agents, able to do whatever we want with whomever we want. Not liking that answer at all, he gritted his teeth. I bought these for you. He extended the flowers to her. You actually went to a store and picked those out? She asked, not moving to accept his gift. Yes. You mean you didn't get Diana to do it for you? I said I picked them out. I went to the florist and specifically asked for carnations because I know they're your favorite. Her face remained impassive. You wasted your time. Trenton set the flowers on the bar and took a deep breath. You're not going to make this easy for me, are you? I don't know what you want, Trent. I didn't hear from you for an entire week, and then when I do see you, you're doing the same thing you always do, hooking up. Nothing changed. Tell me what you want so I can get back to my company. You think I'm going to leave you here with him? With you dressed like that? He scanned her body, even more annoyed when he noted once again how tight the jeans and shirt were. You must be out of your goddamn mind. There's nothing wrong with the way I'm dressed. Everything is wrong with the way you're dressed, he fired back. If it bothers you so much, get out. I just said I'm not leaving you here alone with him. You don't have a choice. Actually, I do. He's getting out of here. No, you are. You can't throw him out. I'm throwing you out. Wrong. Trust me, he's leaving, and he's leaving all on his own. Watch. Trenton strutted back to the living room and went to stand over Connor on the sofa. He smiled when the other man looked up at him. It's time for you to go. Go? I don't understand. Stop it, Trent, Alannah said behind him. Alannah and I need privacy. Two's company, three's a crowd and all that. What's going on? Connor looked around Trenton to Alannah. No, look at me, Trenton said, speaking in a calm voice. I'm trying to be nice, but pretty soon I won't be nice anymore. So I'm asking you again, please leave, now. Stop trying to intimidate him. I'm not trying to intimidate him, Trenton said, watching Connor's expression shift from confusion into quiet alarm. If you lay a hand on him, I won't do anything to him. Personally, I can pay someone to do that for me. Someone who can make it look like an accident. Trent! Connor jumped to his feet. I think you're right. I better go. Good idea, Trenton said. Connor edged around Trenton and rushed to the front door. Alannah hurried after him. and Trenton flexed his finger so as not to yank her back. She placed a hand on Connor's arm. "You don't have to leave." "It's best that I do." He eyed Trenton warily. "You're a wonderful woman, Alannah, and I was looking forward to getting to know you better. But you and..." His gaze moved to Trenton again, but jumped away. "You and your friend need to figure out what you're doing." "He's bluffing," Alannah said. "No, I'm not," Trenton interjected. She glowered at him, but her attention returned to Connor when he took her hand. "Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Take care." He patted her hand and left. Quiet descended on the room. Even Angel didn't make a sound. She watched from the safety of the cage's interior as the night's events unfolded. Alannah didn't say a word and simply marched past Trenton, as if he wasn't even there. "Alannah!" He caught her by the arm and she yanked away. "Get out!" He'd never heard her voice so low and filled with fury. Duplicate circles of red suffused her cheeks, and her eyes spat green and brown flames. "I have something to say." "I don't want to hear it!" She pointed to the door. "Go! Now! You're not welcome here!" "And he was? Why the hell is he welcomed and not me?" She stared at him and refused to answer. Trenton walked closer. "I asked you a question." "I don't have to answer you." "Why was he here? Why are you dressed like that?" "I didn't do anything wrong. You can't make me feel guilty." "Feel guilty about what? Be woman enough to say it," he said, repeating a variation of the same word she'd thrown at him outside Ingrid and Josh's home. "You want me to tell you?" "That's what I said." "Fine. I wanted to sleep with him. To..." Trenton listened, jaw aching from clenching his teeth so hard. "To hurt me?" He finished for her. She bit the inside of her bottom lip, the way she always did whenever she fought back her emotions. After a couple of blinks, she responded in a quiet voice. "Yes." "That's not like you. That's not the kind of thing the Alannah I know would do." "I'm not the Alannah you knew." "You're the same Alannah I've always known. If you'd had sex with him, you would have hated yourself for using him." "Nice try, Trent. But I'm sure I would have been fine." She cocked a brow at him. "I need to have my needs met, too. Maybe I wanted someone to go down on me tonight, just to take the edge off." Her eyes challenged him. Trenton felt bile rise in his stomach, nauseated by the thought of another man putting his head between her legs, kissing her, tasting her, owning her with his mouth. That is not okay. Her eyes widened. He stepped closer and towered over her, forcing her to tilt her head back to look him in the eye. "No other man is allowed to do anything to you, touch you, kiss you, or go down on you. You're such a hypocrite." Pain shone through the anger in her eyes. His gut burned with shame. "I'm sorry about the thing with Beth. I feel like shit." "Good, because that was a shitty thing to do." She averted her face from him, but not before he caught a glimpse of her pained expression. "How could you do that?" she asked in a tremulous voice. The sound of her hurting gutted him. Her arms closed over her midsection in a protective fold. "I know we never said... I just thought..." Trenton reached for her and then withdrew, unsure if she'd pull away from his touch. "I messed up." "Yes, you did." She looked up at him, eyes laden with vulnerability. "You hurt me. Every other time I've been hurt, I could come to you. I could cry on your shoulder. But you were the one who hurt me. Alannah, sweetheart. You didn't even call after. You acted like I didn't matter to you." Her voice thickened at the end. "Didn't matter." Trenton expelled a deep breath. "You know you matter. You've always mattered. And I could control the situation. Now that you've changed, I feel you slipping away from me. You've changed your hair, you've changed your clothes, you don't return my calls, you're dating a man who's so perfect he makes me sick." He stared down into her shocked face. "You matter. You matter too much. God damn it, Alannah. You matter so much that I need you. Like air, like water, like food. He took a deep breath, struggling to articulate everything he felt inside. Finally, he clenched his fists and said with resignation the words he'd fought to acknowledge for far too long. "I love you." Her mouth fell open. "I do." He stepped close and cradled her face in his hands. Her eyes held a combination of wonder and confusion. "I fucking love you. Everything you do lately has been driving me out of my mind, and it's because I love you. Connor can't have you. I'll camp outside your house every night if I have to. If he tries to weasel his way back into your life, I'll have somebody break both of his legs until he wises up and leaves you alone." Her eyes widened. "You can't. I'm serious. I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes because I love you. I love you." Her gaze lowered to his mouth. anticipating, and his head swooped down to give her exactly what she expected. Fisting his hand in her hair, Trenton pulled her in tight and lowered his lips to hers in a kiss that made his heart skip a beat. As her arms locked around his neck, he kissed her with rising passion, a man who understood the value of the prize he had and couldn't afford to let anyone take it away from him. "Baby," he murmured. She placed little pecks against his mouth, nipping at the corners with her lips and teeth, the teasing igniting hunger in his blood. He had to make love to her. They'd been apart for too long. Growling low in his throat, Trenton tossed Alannah over his shoulder like a caveman and raced up the staircase. He kicked open the door of her bedroom so hard it bounced back from the inside wall, but he'd already taken long strides to the bed and tossed her onto it. Moving quickly, he dragged her pants and underwear over her hips and dropped them to the carpet. Then he stood back and just stared at her, feasting his eyes on her nakedness. His gaze drank in the bare legs, the trimmed mound, and the softness of her flat belly. She covered her most intimate place with trembling fingers in a tentative display of modesty, but Trenton brushed her hands away and licked his lips, contemplating how she'd taste when he put his mouth on her again. He grabbed a pillow and put it under her bottom, tilting her hips up to just the right angle. "Still mine?" he asked, placing a possessive hand over her heated flesh and stroking his digits through the slick moisture he found. "Yes," she said breathlessly, writhing under his touch. "I want to hear you say it. Yes, it's yours. I'm yours." He grabbed her calves and pushed her knees back to her chest, keeping her legs wide. She twisted in anticipation, but he held her fast. "Nobody gets to go down on you but me." He lowered his head between her legs and used gentle flicks to taste the moisture between them. "Trent." His name trembled on the tip of her tongue, and the sound sent shivers shimmying down his spine. An all-consuming need to drive her out of her mind, to turn her inside out, consumed him. He ravaged her with his mouth, groaning at the delicious taste of her juices as he circled her drenched clit and plucked at the sensitized folds. Her hands found their way beneath her black top and she fingered her nipples, eyes closed, quietly chanting his name. Attuned to her body, he monitored each reaction. How her hips moved when he deepened the intensity of each stroke, how the decibels of each moan increased with the speed of every swipe. His reward was a gasping cry when she climaxed hard in a display of shakes that gave his ego a hefty stroke and left him with a self-satisfied smirk on his face for a job well done. Alannah lay there, moaning, saturated with pleasure, when he informed her, "I'm just getting started." With his help, she wriggled out of her top, which he then tossed to the floor with her other clothes. He shrugged off his shirt and then his pants followed suit. Quickly he donned a condom and he came down on top of her. He tasted her lips again, their mouths meshing together in a soul-searing kiss. Turning her onto her side so she faced away from him, Trenton breathed into her ear. "Guess what else?" "What?" "You're getting all this dick tonight." Alannah inhaled sharply, closing her eyes as if the very thought was too much to contemplate. "Think you can take it?" Trenton asked. "Yes," she said softly. He spread his fingers over the flat line of her belly and slid down to the damp curls below. "Let me hear you say it, sweetheart." "I'm taking all this dick." She reached back and fondled him, stroking his length until he groaned into her neck. He pressed against the cushion of her butt and gripped her hips with a firm hand. "That's right," he said, voice strained and thready as he readied for entry. Broken breaths emitted from her throat as he turned her onto her stomach and entered her from behind. He started slowly, taking the sounds of pleasure as encouragement to slide deeper. His hands canted her hips higher, his own breathing a fractured and labored sound. "You okay, sweetheart?" "Yes," she panted, pushing back, urging him to fulfill his promise. That was all the encouragement Trenton needed. He thrust his hips and surged inside of her. Alannah cried out and curled her fingers into the sheets, her entire being focused on the spot between her legs, where Trenton's thrusting motion grew more and more urgent. She bounced her hips higher, every muscle concentrated on accommodating him. He set his mouth to her ear. "That's it. It's all yours, sweetheart. Take all this dick." His mouth was a hot suction on her back. His big hands were hot clamps that held her fast so he could plant his body deeper. Excruciating pleasure spiraled through her blood and eclipsed the discomfort she initially experienced. "Still with me, baby?" "Yes." "Good, because I want you to love it, sweetheart." He spoke softly, his lips pressed to the sensitive groove behind her ear. "I want you to love this dick." Alannah gasped, body shivering at his erotic request. Pleasure and pain commingled, and her body creamed around him, making it easier for him to slide even deeper. She'd never known this type of sensation, such an unprecedented fullness that left her gasping for air. Trenton muttered something incoherent and pumped his hips even harder. Alannah bit down on her lip and balled her hands on the pillows, lowering her shoulders and readying for the climax already winding its way through her loins. When her body exploded, She cried out in a loud voice and arched her back at a very sharp angle. Seconds later, using long, powerful strokes, Trenton ejaculated with a guttural groan and swore into her neck. Collapsing beside her, Trenton dragged Alannah into his arms. His shallow breaths disturbed her tangled hair, and his arm rested loosely around her waist. "Trent," she whispered, reaching back for him. She curled her arm around his neck. "I'm right here, Alannah." He shifted a muscular thigh over hers and pressed his lips to her shoulder. "I'm right here." Chapter 24. Alannah curled up against Trenton, fitting to his body like a soft, malleable compound. "Those jeans you had on tonight?" He sighed. "You're going to have me getting into all kinds of fights dressing the way you do. That would not be wise. You'll be hit with a bunch of lawsuits. Stop dressing that way then. Behave. They're just clothes. To you, they're just clothes. To a man, they're the gateway to a vivid imagination." He idly ran his fingers up and down the arm she had thrown across his torso. "Definitely can't let Gavin ever see you in those jeans or anything else remotely tight-fitting." His older brother was off in South America, living the daredevil life he loved so much. "Why?" "He said something about you at Ivy and Lucas's engagement party." "What did he say?" "He paid you a compliment. Can't really remember what he said." She tweaked his nipple and he flinched, pretending that it hurt. "Tell me what he said, or next time I'll do it harder." "He said he always thought you were kind of cute." "Damn." "Gavin thinks I'm cute?" She rose up on an elbow. "Even with the way I used to dress? Don't sound so happy." "I'm not." "Why are you smiling then?" "Am I?" She bit down on her lip. "Yes," Trenton said, scowling. "I'm surprised." "That's not a surprised face. That's a happy face." "Okay, fine. I'm flattered." "I'm definitely keeping you two apart," he muttered. She settled against his shoulder again. "Gavin thinks I'm hot." "Nobody said anything about you being hot. Just because you have a luscious ass, tasty nipples, and you're beautiful inside and out doesn't make you hot." Alannah shifted her gaze up so she could see his face, and he looked down at her. A sweet smile came across her face. "Thank you," she said. Trenton squeezed her tighter and brushed his thumb across her bottom lip. "It's true. You're beautiful, Alannah. I can't believe you ever doubted that." He briefly pressed his mouth to hers and then settled back against the pillows. Alannah laced her fingers between his. "You weren't very nice to Connor. I can't believe you made him leave. Fuck him. Trent, I have to face him at work. So what? You have nothing to be embarrassed about. He's the one who should be embarrassed. He let another man intimidate him into leaving a woman he's interested in. You really believe he was wrong for letting that happen, don't you? Absolutely. You threatened him. Your point is?" She huffed. "Never mind." "What?" Trenton watched her pluck a loose thread in the sheet. "I don't have anything else to say." "Not true. You want to say something else?" She ran a fingertip along the circumference of the sun on his chest. "Why do you dislike Connor so much? He's a really nice guy, and he never did anything to you." "Wrong. He did do something to me. Or he almost did." "When?" She lifted her head off his shoulder. "You don't even know him." Trenton swung his head in her direction, and his gaze held hers. "Connor did the worst thing possible. He almost came between us. He and I will never be friends." He spoke in an austere, succinct manner to make sure she understood he meant every word. Alannah rested her head back on his shoulder. "So you don't want me to see Connor? Is it just him?" "I don't want you seeing anybody else but me." She didn't respond for a full minute, but he felt the stillness in her body. "And what are you going to do?" she asked quietly. "I'm not seeing anybody else either." "Not even Beth?" Trenton tipped her chin up with his finger, forcing her to look him in the eye. "Beth who?" They went to a late dinner at the best Thai restaurant, and after they arrived back at Alannah's townhouse, Trenton walked in with her. Reluctant to leave, he held her in the middle of the living room, one hand on each butt cheek, their foreheads together. "I need to go," he said. Alannah groaned. "No." She tightened her arms around the trunk of his body and pressed her cheek against his chest. "Yes." He patted her bottom. "I'm going to Mother's tomorrow for dinner. You coming?" "I can," she said into his shirt, still sounding unhappy and holding him just as tightly. "You want me to pick you up?" "Okay." He brushed his lips across her brow and then walked to the door, pulling her behind him. He turned at the door. "You're good, right?" "Yes." She nodded. "I took care of your needs tonight. You're straight. You no longer need to get the edge off?" She blushed. "No, I'm fine now. Because if you want, we could do a quickie before I leave." Alannah's eyes widened. Trent, I'm serious. You want me to go down on you right now? He stepped closer. No, she laughed shakily. It's not necessary. You sure? Because I'll do it. I'll do it right now. He dropped his gaze to her hips and licked his lips before lifting his eyes to face her again. She blushed harder. So cute. No, I'm fine. Thanks for the offer, but I'm good. You handled your business earlier. Okay? Just want to make sure you're straight. I'll see you tomorrow then, okay? She nodded and he left after stealing one more kiss. Alannah closed the door on Trenton and couldn't help the broad smile that spread across her lips. She leaned against the wood, listening for his departure. 2 firm knocks made her jump back. Hit the deadbolt. She slid the bolt into place. Happy now? She called out, pretending to be annoyed. She rested her forehead against the cool surface of the pine. He didn't answer right away. 4, maybe 5 seconds passed. Very happy, he said, voice thick and coarse, the same way hers would sound if she dared speak right now. She waited and sensed when he'd moved. Then she heard the truck start and he drove away. Grinning, Alannah went into the kitchen and put the flowers he brought into a vase she found in a downstairs closet. They looked beautiful sitting on the counter, and in the morning they'd be a nice sight as she ate breakfast. She couldn't believe Trenton had actually set foot inside a flower shop and picked out flowers, carnations no less, her favorite. She shook her head in disbelief. Then she went upstairs to change her moist panties. Chapter 25. Alannah was fixing a bowl of cereal when the phone rang. Angel popped her head up from the water bowl. Who could that be? She asked the dog, who in turn barked in answer. She set the milk and cereal on the counter, picked up the phone, and let out a little squeal when she saw the name on the screen. Hey, Jill. Jill was a friend from college, and they hadn't spoken in a long time. They'd both been science majors, and while Alannah had remained in Seattle, Jill had accepted a position at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta. Hi, Alannah. How are you? They engaged in a bit of small talk, catching up on the latest with jobs and family before Jill explained the reason for the call. A couple of months ago, my supervisor mentioned that Emory University Hospital and Georgia Tech are forming a research coalition. At the time, he didn't mention what it was, but I recently found out the coalition is a done deal. They're going to combine the knowledge of the hospital's biomedical research students and engineering students from Georgia Tech. The goal is to, get this, look into making affordable artificial organs and limbs that are accepted into the human body. Jill's voice heightened with excitement the more she talked. The students do all the work, but they need program managers to supervise them, people with actual practical experience to provide guidance. I immediately thought of you and the work you're doing. Alannah, this is an amazing opportunity. Without an advanced degree, you've probably gone as far as you can go at Dymogenesis, but here, you'd be a supervisor, and the starting pay for a new program manager is in the high 6 figures. The project has already received funding for 5 years. Alannah dropped onto one of the chairs at the bar. Wow, this does sound like an amazing opportunity. By getting in on the ground floor, she'd have the opportunity to move up as the program grew. It is. What do you think? I guess I should look into it. You don't sound excited. Aren't you interested? I am. But I thought you'd be happier. I don't have the job yet. Alannah laughed, though her friend was right. She should express more enthusiasm about the potential position. I don't want to get my hopes up. I understand, but I think you'd be perfect for it. You have expertise in the exact same field. True. Alannah gnawed on her lip. She thought about her relationship with Trenton. They'd been seeing each other exclusively over the past 2 months. Trenton continued to be extremely attentive, making a point of coming up to her job once a week to eat lunch. Depending on how much time he could spare, they ate in the cafeteria or walked to one of the neighboring eateries for sandwiches. If she applied for and got the job, she'd have to leave Seattle. And him. Tell you what, Jill went on. In a few minutes, I'll text the link to where you can look at the details and the requirements for the program manager position. I'll also include the name of my supervisor. If you're interested and apply, use her name as a reference, okay? Okay. They chatted for a few minutes more. After they hung up, Alannah sat and stared at the phone until her friend texted the details. When she did, she went right to the link and reviewed the education and work experience requirements. Jill was right. With her background, she was a perfect fit for the position. It was as if the job description had been written with her in mind. She rushed upstairs to get her laptop and then sat down at the kitchen counter to fill out the application. Once she'd answered all the questions and uploaded her resume, she hesitated for a few seconds, the icon hovering over submit. Then, taking a deep breath, she clicked the button. Just to see what happens, she told herself. The front door opened and Alannah looked up to see Trenton appear in the doorway, wearing a pair of distressed jeans and a burnt orange shirt. He had the sleeves rolled up to right below his elbow, exposing the tats that circled his muscular forearms. She tapped off the job website and closed the laptop. "What are you doing here? Miss me already?" Last night she'd had dinner at Kenla's fine dining restaurant with him, Ivy, and her fiancé, Cyrus and his wife Daniela, and Constance Johnson, their mother. They'd enjoyed a delicious 5-course meal in one of the private rooms, with views of Lake Union and the Cascade Mountains in the distance. He marched over and dropped a kiss on her mouth. "Get dressed. We need to catch a flight in 1 hour." "Whoa, where are we going?" "New York." He wore an excited grin, which only heightened her curiosity about the out-of-the-blue trip. "I can't go to New York. I have to work in the morning, and you're supposed to be on your way to Colorado for the beer festival." They'd already said their goodbyes when he left her townhouse this morning. He'd be gone for an entire week. "I'll have the pilot drop me off in Colorado on the way back from New York, and you'll make it back in time for work in the morning." Alannah laughed. He'd thought of everything. Holding up her hand, she said, "Slow down. What is this about?" His features bright and animated, Trenton shook his head. "Can't tell you. It's a surprise." "Okay, but—" Her eyes dropped to her dog. Angel hadn't barked or even growled once when Trenton showed up. In fact, she hadn't in weeks. Odd. "What about Angel? The kennel's not open on Sunday." He shrugged. "Can your friend Terry watch her? Or I can get Ivy or Cyrus to take her overnight." She jabbed a fist onto one hip. "What is this about, Trent? I told you. It's a surprise. And I told you no more gifts." He'd been spoiling her so much that she'd had to demand he stop giving her gifts, jewelry, clothes, flowers. While flattering, she'd been overwhelmed by the flood of presents. In some ways, she thought he was trying to buy her love and forgiveness. And the truth was, it wasn't necessary. "This is different. You're going to really, really want it, I promise." He was grinning so hard some of the excitement started to rub off on her. "You're spoiling me," she said. His happy grin turned affectionate and his eyes softened on her. "Is that such a bad thing?" "No, I guess not." "Do you trust me?" he asked. She looked into his eyes. "Yes, I trust you." "Good. The plane is gassed and waiting for us. Now you need to get ready." He grabbed her by the hand and hauled her from the kitchen. "I can't believe I had dinner with Simon Yam." Alannah squeezed Trenton's hand and released a low-volume squeal. A lace wrap protected her bare shoulders from the cool September air. She wore a strapless Donna Karan dress in navy blue and an understated gold and diamond necklace with matching earrings, and had twisted her hair into a loose topknot. Trenton looked delicious in a jacket, white shirt, and no tie. Their seafood dinner had probably been tasty, but Alannah couldn't remember much about it because she'd been so enthralled by the popular actor. He'd appeared in dozens of films, including one of her favorite thrillers, The Thieves. Despite all of his complaints about having to read the subtitles of the foreign films, Trenton had been paying attention. "Simon Sweet Potato is all right," he said. Alannah punched his arm. "Simon Yam, and he's wonderful," she said. The actor had been very gracious and immediately put her at ease with his laid-back, funny conversation. "I swear you have a crush on this guy. You were giving him googly eyes, and I was sitting right there." Alannah giggled, blushing. "I was not." "Yeah, you were." Instead of being angry or jealous, he grinned down at her, clearly pleased with the execution of the surprise. She leaned into his side, tilting her head to gaze up at him. "How did you arrange this?" "One of my frat brothers works at the hotel where he's staying, and I'd mentioned in passing how much you liked him and his movies. He was able to get in touch with him and mentioned what a big fan you were." Trenton shrugged. Alannah gazed up at his profile. "I don't think it was that simple. No doubt you name-dropped who you were and your family, etc." I might have mentioned that to his handler. His eyes found hers, and he hooked an arm around her neck, pulling her closer and tweaking her freckled nose. She wrinkled it at him, and he pressed his lips to her temple, causing her to melt against his muscled frame, relishing the easy affection of the kiss. A black SUV with tinted windows pulled up, but instead of waiting for the driver to come around, Trenton opened the back door. Alannah slid onto the seat and he followed behind. As they pulled away from the curb, she sidled up beside him and rested her head on his shoulder. "Can a brother get some room?" he said. Alannah lifted her head. "Oh, a brother wants some room?" She made a big show of moving away, but Trenton wasn't having it. He dragged her back across the seat and pulled her onto his lap. "This is dangerous," she said, even though she settled her head on his shoulder. "I should be wearing a seatbelt. I'll keep you safe." He closed his arms around her and began to gently rub her back. "I'm on cloud 9 right now," Alannah murmured. She played with a button on his shirt. "You're always doing such nice things for me." "You deserve it," he said quietly. His hand continued to rub a soothing path up and down her spine. They remained in the same position, not speaking again until they arrived at the airfield and had to board the private jet. Once they were seated beside each other in the plush leather seats, Alannah reached for his hand. "Thank you," she said softly. She saw how much pleasure expressing her appreciation brought him by the way his smile brightened. "I love you," he said. Those 3 words summing up why he'd gone to all the trouble to arrange this spur-of-the-moment trip. She ached to say the words back to him, but instead settled for simply resting her head on his shoulder, strong and comfortable, and her favorite spot in the world. She told him she loved him so many times in the past, but now that they were a couple, she was afraid to say the words, because she wouldn't just be telling him that she loved him, she'd be telling him that she was in love with him, and expressing those feelings, at least while sober, scared her. "Tired?" Trenton asked. She nodded. "Me too. Let's go lie down." They walked back to the small bedroom, which included a minibar, a TV screen built into a recessed square of the wall, and 2 chairs on either side of a foldable table that was bolted to the wall. Trenton sat on the bed and slid his hands under her dress and up her thighs. "I thought you were tired," she said, as heat circled her core. "I was. And then you started rubbing all on me." "I was not." She giggled and pushed him, but he grabbed her around the waist and pulled her close enough to kiss her belly through the dress. "You wearing the lingerie I bought you?" he whispered. "Yes." "You're too tired to—" He raised a brow and let the question dangle in the middle of the room. "No?" "Then let me see." Alannah reached behind her and unzipped the back of the dress. Once undone, it slid into a puddle at her feet. She stood in a bronze strapless bra and panties, both made of satin. He'd chosen them for her, along with a slew of others. Closing her eyes, she preened under the caress of his hands as they moved slowly up and down the curve of her waist, warming her skin with his gentle touch. Then he kissed her belly button, and in response, her stomach tightened like a coiled spring. She took in a deep breath by mouth and ran her fingers over his head. His tongue traced a circle around her navel and along the line of the panties. "Love you so much," he whispered. The words seemed torn from him as he gripped her bottom and squeezed. Trenton dragged her down on top of him and they enjoyed a hungry, moist kiss. She felt him harden against her thigh and reached down to massage the stiff length of him through his slacks. He moaned, grasping the back of her neck and pushing his tongue past her lips to deepen the kiss. Alannah unbuttoned his shirt and kissed his throat and chest. Everything about him thrilled and excited her. The golden hue of his skin, the smooth hardness of his body, the way he tasted, even the way he smelled. She could never, ever get enough of Trenton. She lifted her head and looked down into his handsome face. "I want to be on top." The green of his eyes darkened and he smiled at her. She smiled back and lowered her head so she could enjoy his luscious mouth again. Before the descent into Colorado, they'd be able to take a few hours' nap. Lying facing each other, Trenton had his arm thrown across Alannah's waist. She stared at his closed eyes. Even though the festival in Colorado only lasted 4 days, he'd be gone for an entire week because of the parties and other events taking place around the event. JBC had a big day of grilling and giveaways planned, and the rest of the week he and the reps would be busy, which meant he couldn't talk to her much while there. Once again, she thought about the job in Atlanta. If offered, could she accept the position across the country, away from Trenton? She didn't think she could. They hadn't even separated for the week yet, and she already missed him. The truth was she didn't want a job in Atlanta or anywhere else for that matter. Not when it meant she'd have to be apart from him. She touched his face, where tiny bristles had already emerged to roughen his cheek. "I love you," she said quietly. Although relieved to finally admit her feelings, Alannah experienced the fear and worry of laying bare herself to the one person who could tear her heart in two. A tear slid from the corner of her eye, rolled over her nose, and dripped onto the pillow. Trenton opened his eyes. Seeing her tear, he lifted a finger and swiped the remnants of it from the bridge of her nose. "Thank you," he said, his voice as quiet as hers. She smiled, and he smiled back. But there was something else underlying the bass in his voice, something she couldn't quite define at that moment. Only later, hauled into oblivion by the ropes of sleep, did her subconscious comprehend what she hadn't been able to grasp. It wasn't that he'd said the words, "thank you," but how he'd said them. The realization tugged at her heart. He sounded so deeply grateful. Chapter 26. Alannah sat at Terry's station at the spa, fingers spread out on the table. Terry shook the bottle of nail polish, a color somewhere between pink and lavender. Alannah had already had a facial, all in preparation for Trenton's return. I thought the two of you were close before, but now that you're a couple, you're practically inseparable. Terry spread the polish over the first nail. I can't believe you survived a week without him. I can't either, Alannah said. She giggled when Terry shook her head. I don't think I've ever been happier. I don't think I've ever seen you happier. Terry was quiet as she finished the first coat. So, when will you see Mr. Loverman? He flies in this afternoon, but he has to stop at his mother's first. He's going to check on his brother Gavin. Terry looked up. He's the one who had the accident rock climbing in the Andes? That's the one. Terry shook her head and resumed painting Alannah's nails. It's like he has a death wish. Alannah didn't comment. She knew better than to share any information about the Johnsons with anyone, even her good friend. If she could speak about it, she'd tell Terry that Gavin's family didn't approve of his thrill-seeking exploits at all. After her conversation with Trenton, she had a feeling things were about to change for Gavin. Okay, all done. Terry closed the bottle. Alannah spread her fingers and observed her friend's handiwork. Perfect. Terry tilted her head. Your skin is glowing and you're smiling all the time. This relationship agrees with you. I think finally getting what I want agrees with me, but sometimes... She sighed. I know I'm being ridiculous, but I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Terry frowned. What do you mean? Some crazy ex-girlfriend, a baby mama, or he'll do something, I don't know. She examined her hands. It's too perfect. I'm waiting for something to happen to screw it up. Nothing's going to happen. That's crazy talk. Alannah gave her friend a wry smile. You're right. What am I thinking? We're in a good place. What could possibly happen now? Trenton walked through his mother's house and into the living room, right on time to hear Cyrus tear into Gavin, who sat in a wheelchair with his right leg stretched out in a cast. There was a brace below his knee on the other leg because of a minor injury he'd sustained to his ankle in his fall in the Andes. Xavier, the second oldest who'd recently moved back to Seattle to train under Cyrus, sat on the arm of the sofa with his arms crossed, brows drawn over his eyes. He looked more polished than Trenton had seen him in years, wearing a charcoal suit and with his long dreadlocks pulled back into a ponytail. He'd begun working directly with Cyrus to take over the day-to-day of the entire Johnson Enterprise conglomerate, and he certainly looked the part of a chief operations officer in training. Maybe you get a kick out of risking your life and getting busted up, but none of us want to see that. Cyrus stood over Gavin in a Brioni tuxedo, face tight and voice loud and booming, more reminiscent of their father than Trenton had ever seen him. Cyrus normally remained calm no matter the situation, so seeing him overwrought was unusual. Mother wants you in Seattle, and you're going to stay here, and that's final. Cyrus's pregnant wife, Daniela, stood beside him in a dark blue designer evening gown, hair swept up in an elegant style and diamonds around her neck. She placed a calming hand on her husband's shoulder, and he stepped back, his mouth tight with frustration. Ivy stood on the other side of Cyrus. Gavin, why do you want to leave? You're in no condition to travel. Mother wants you to stay, and while you're here, you have servants and Adelina at your disposal. I don't want to be here. Can't you people understand that? Irritation vibrated in Gavin's voice. While you're here, you can recuperate under a good doctor's care. The best money can buy, Ivy pointed out. The United States is not the only country with good doctors. I can get excellent medical care in other parts of the world. Gavin's gaze rested on all of them in turn. I know you guys mean well, but what am I supposed to do for the next couple of months if I stay here? Get a hobby, Cyrus said. Without 2 functional legs? Gavin looked up at Xavier. Come on, Xavier, tell them. They're being ridiculous. Xavier shook his head. I'm with Ivy and Cyrus on this one. And anyway, what can you do without 2 functional legs in another country? Gavin sent a silent plea to Trenton with his eyes, but Trenton went to stand with the others. I agree with them. Besides, it's what Mother wants. Constance Johnson always got her way. As a last resort, Gavin looked at his sister-in-law. Daniela, help me out here. Cyrus will listen to you. Daniela clasped her hands below her protruding belly. I agree with your family, Gavin. There's absolutely no reason for you to leave. You should stay. I don't care what you do to occupy your time, Cyrus said, clearly still riled up. Learn to play the piano or the guitar or something. It's up to you. But whatever you do, you'll be doing it from Seattle. At my wife's suggestion, I tried the flies with honey approach and it didn't work. So now, I'm telling you, you're not leaving. I'm going to make sure our pilots know you're not allowed to use any of the family aircraft. And Mother's driver will report to me and let me know, as usual, you're being an over-the-top control freak, Gavin fumed. And I will make sure that the house manager knows if a hired car or taxi or any unfamiliar vehicle pulls up to the gates, they should not be allowed onto the property. Gavin glared at his older brother. Are you serious? You're going to hold me hostage? If that's what it takes. You don't want to take care of yourself? Then I will. I'm not a child, Then stop acting like one, Cyrus shouted. They all went silent, and tension, thick and heavy as evening fog, weighed in the air. Cyrus never spoke above a certain decibel. When he continued, his voice had mellowed to a quieter level, but waves of anger still rolled off him. This isn't a joke, Gavin. Every time you have an accident after one of your ridiculous stunts, we have to sit here and pretend that it's okay, that you'll be fine. You broke your leg in 3 places. You have bruised ribs and tore up your ankle. It could have been much worse. You could have broken your neck. You could have been killed on that cliff. Gavin stared down at the floor, his chest heaving in quiet anger. But he didn't respond to Cyrus, because like Trenton, he had to know Cyrus was right. He raced cars, had been sky surfing, base jumping, and tackling the waves off Australia's turbulent east coast. As an adrenaline junkie, his participation in extreme sports had resulted in varying degrees of disasters over the years, yet nothing was off limits. Cyrus flipped his wrist and looked at the time. He straightened his tie. Daniela and I have a party to attend. He sounded tired. If we stay here any longer, we're going to be late. The 3 of you can deal with him. I'm done. He placed his hand to the small of his wife's back. Good night, Daniela said. They all murmured their goodbyes as the couple left the room. What are you going to do? Ivy asked quietly. You're being ridiculous. You know that, don't you? I'm being ridiculous? Did you hear what our Lord and Master said? Gavin shot her a dark look. I'm an adult. If I want to leave, I should be able to. I should call the police and tell them I'm being held against my will. You won't do that, Trenton said. Gavin sighed heavily and let his head fall backward. He let out a growl. No, I won't. So I guess I'm stuck here. He rested his head in his hand. Ivy crossed her arms, her expression holding sadness. I thought for sure you'd stay a few weeks after my engagement party, but you left after only a few days. Is it so terrible for you to be here? Trenton understood why Ivy was so upset. She and Gavin were twins and used to be extremely close. So close they even coordinated their Halloween costumes. He distinctly remembered a party where they dressed as the Wonder Twins, and another when they dressed as Batman and Robin. No, it's not so terrible for me to be here, Gavin said in a weary voice. A glimmer of a smile crossed Ivy's lips. Stay for a while. Relax. Relax, yeah. I'll try to do that. I'll see if I can get some entertainment for you, Trenton offered. Gavin perked up and smiled slyly. Would this happen to be female entertainment? Of course. His eyes lit up. Does she have a fat ass and big boobs? Of course. I know what you like. Both men chuckled knowingly. Oh my goodness. Ivy rolled her eyes. That's my cue to leave. She leaned down to give her brother a hug. When she stood up, she was smiling. This isn't exactly the condition I wanted you in, but I'm glad you're back for a while. So I'll take you any way I can get you. Bye, Trent. Bye, Xavier. She waved on her way out. I'm out too, Xavier said. Where are you going? Gavin asked. Mind your business. Xavier walked out with a smirk on his face. Gavin waited until he and Trenton were alone. With a twinkle in his eyes, he said, Speaking of fat asses, how's Alannah? Don't start. Gavin chuckled. I won't. I know that's your girl now. About time, too. Can't believe how long the two of you are doing the friend thing. Yeah, well, sometimes you can't see what's right under your nose. True. So is it serious? You're off the market? Trenton nodded. Damn. Trenton laughed at his brother's raised eyebrows. Who'll be my partner in crime now? You'll have to find somebody else. I'm not screwing this up. Good for you. She's a good woman. Speaking of which, I better get out of here. I haven't seen her in a week and she's meeting me at my place. He clapped Gavin on the shoulder and his brother winced in pain. Sorry about that. Stay out of trouble. Yeah. Chapter 27. She should have written a list. Alannah reviewed the items in her handbasket at Aldi's Market, a Seattle-based specialty grocer. The owner, a French Arab from Morocco, imported a huge selection of gourmet foods. On any given night, there may be tastings for the latest imported Argentinian wines accompanied by a selection of artisanal cheeses. Tonight she'd sampled the caviar and foie gras, but her basket contained the fixings for dinner: organic chicken, fresh herbs, heavy cream, cheese, and pasta. Angel was at the kennel, so Alannah could stay the night and all day tomorrow with Trenton. He had dinner covered tonight with an order from the best Thai restaurant. They could go out to dinner tomorrow, but she wanted to spend a lazy Sunday afternoon with him and had an idea for a chicken dish she was certain he'd enjoy. I guess that's all I need, she murmured to herself. On the way to the cashier's, she saw a man in the aisle, stocky, average height, and with a circled beard. As she neared, he looked up, eyes narrowing when they rested on her. She kept moving and had passed him when he spoke. Hey, you're Trenton Johnson's girlfriend, right? Alannah paused and turned to look at the stranger. Since she didn't know this person or his motives, she was immediately cautious. Something like that. He laughed. Don't be coy. Trenton makes it very obvious that you're not to be messed with. Stay away, hands off. He held up both hands, palms facing outward. Really? He was staking claims like that? Yeah, I'm Steve, by the way. He extended his hand. They shook hands. Alannah. I know who you are. Everybody knows who you are. He looked her up and down in a decidedly non-friendly way. Alannah slid her hand from his. Well, it was nice to... Trenton didn't want me asking about you. Didn't even want me looking at you. He almost chewed my head off over you. Oh? He can be a little protective. That was 3 months ago. He's probably even worse now. Alannah frowned. 3 months ago. You must have the time wrong. That would have been June, and she and Trenton had only become a couple in July. No, ma'am, I'm not mistaken. You probably didn't see me, but it was one night when he played at the Underground. I never saw the performance because he had me kicked out. Are you sure? They weren't together then, but the last time Trenton had played at the club had been in June. Oh, I'm sure, sweetheart. You had on a red mini dress? You looked nice, real nice. Alannah had the distinct impression this guy didn't understand the concept of boundaries. Still, what he said didn't make sense. And Trenton told you he and I were together? Back in June? Oh, yeah. After I paid you a compliment, he said I should keep my eyes to myself, or something along those lines. Can't believe the brother went off like that just for looking. But my friend Julian explained later that he's always been that way about you. Alannah couldn't believe what she was hearing. Always? You didn't know? Your man does not play, sweetheart. Brothers know to stay the hell away from you. If you want to stay out of trouble, you stay the hell away from Trenton Johnson's woman. Steve rubbed his chin and looked her up and down again. Makes me wonder why he feels he has to stand guard like that. The lustful look in his eyes made her skin crawl. I better go. Nice talking to you. Tell your man I said hi. Alannah rushed down the aisle toward the front of the store, knowing the entire time Steve watched her walk away, and knowing that she had to confront Trenton. Alannah sat in Trenton's living room, waiting. 5 minutes ago, he had texted that he was 5 minutes away. She'd already unpacked the groceries and spent time reviewing the conversation with Steve in her head. Nothing he had said made any sense. The door opened and she rose to greet Trenton. He came in wearing dark slacks and a white button-down shirt and dropped his suitcase and carry-on against the wall. Honey, I'm home. He danced over, his sexy hips moving from side to side and that adorable, lopsided smile lifting the right corner of his mouth. He held up a plastic sack in his hand. Look what I got, he said, waving it in front of her. He threw in extra basil rolls. That dude loves you. He's lucky I'm not a jealous man, and I know you're all mine. He leaned down and pulled her into a kiss. A week apart had left Alannah thirsting for his touch. She lifted her lips and almost succumbed to the warmth of his embrace and the flavor of his mouth. But she held back. Trenton lifted his head. What's wrong? She licked her lips, a little afraid of the outcome of the conversation. You said you're not a jealous man? Well, I am a little bit, but I know he doesn't mean any harm. He grinned and went into the kitchen. Guess who won the gold medallion in the specialty beer category at the festival? Johnson Brewing Company? She stared down at her hands, summoning the courage to confront him. That's right. Hey, you want to eat first or have smoking hot I Miss Trenton sex first? I'm leaving the decision up to you, but I strongly recommend option number 2. Alannah went to stand in the entryway of the kitchen. So, if he meant harm, you would... what? Trenton pulled a bottle of water from the refrigerator. What are you talking about? At the best Thai restaurant. You said, you know he doesn't mean any harm. But what if he did? What would you do? Nothing. I feel like you're leading up to something. Like I'm being baited. He tipped the bottle back and took a big gulp. You're right. Why play around when I should come right out and ask you? They looked at each other from across the room, and Alannah pushed past the knots in her stomach. Have the regulars at the Underground always thought I was your girlfriend? He stared blankly at her, and she could almost see him thinking, wondering what to admit or deny. Why are you asking me that? Her question required a simple yes or no, and the fact that he didn't reply with either actually provided an answer. He didn't even act shocked or surprised or deny. I saw this guy at Aldi's. His name is Steve. Steve who? I don't know his last name. He said he'd been to the Underground and mentioned Julian. I guess he's a friend of yours. He's not my friend. His face cemented into an emotionless mask. I guess not, since you had him kicked out of the club. Alannah kept her eyes on him, watching every movement of his eyes and body. Did you tell men at the club to stay away from me? He set the bottle of water on the counter and scrubbed a hand across his jaw. Not really. Not in so many words. So why did he get that impression, Trent? He said it's always been that way. Trenton cursed softly and took a deep breath. I never actually told anyone to stay away from you. Well, except him. I guess. I let everybody else think whatever they wanted. Her heart beat faster. Which was? Lana, which was? He rubbed the back of his neck. That you were off limits. That there was something going on between us. Her lips parted in shock. Wow. And they thought that because we were always together? I guess, he shrugged. You guess? So let me get this straight. All along, these people think I'm your girlfriend. But you go to the club and pick up women right under my nose. You made me look like a brainless twit. The kind of woman who'll put up with anything. Heck, the kind of woman I've warned you to avoid, but you can't seem to get enough of. It's not as bad as you think, Trenton said quietly. Yes, it is. All this time, no one talked to me because they thought I was with you. Even that night, when I had my hair done and a brand new outfit, you knew and you didn't say anything. You were scaring men away from me. That night, the way you were dressed. He shook his head. Guys like Steve only want one thing. You had no right to do that. Why did you do that to me? You know why. No, I honestly don't. I love you, he said simply. I loved you then. That's not love, Alannah shrieked. Love doesn't deceive and lie. Trenton swallowed and spoke in a soothing voice. I understand you're upset. You have no idea. Alannah took a tremulous breath. I've spent my whole life, our entire friendship, worried about your needs. And you've spent our entire friendship worried about your needs. I've been all about you, and you've been all about you. Color tinged his cheeks. That's not true. You know that's not true. He was right, but she was angry and hurt and disillusioned by his actions. She couldn't stop talking if someone suddenly stuck duct tape over her mouth. You knew how hurt I was that night. You saw how upset I was that no one even tried to talk to me. Yet you pretended to be my friend, pretended to care. And the entire time, it was your fault. Anger and disappointment burned a path through her veins. My friend Jill told me about a great job in Atlanta. He became very still. Why are you telling me about a job in Atlanta? Because I applied for it. It's a great opportunity. He pushed away from the counter, nostrils flaring. You have a good job here. Why do you want to work down there? Atlanta is on the other side of the goddamn country. Because I'm tired of my life revolving around you. You can't even be honest with me. And you were honest with me? He shot back. Sneaking around behind my back and applying for a job all the way in Atlanta? What's the matter? You couldn't find one in Timbuktu? Nice, Trent. Now you're trying to make me into the bad guy. But I had every right to apply for that job. Let's get back to what this conversation is about. The truth. And the truth is, you're part of the reason I've been unhappy for so long. Alannah pressed a hand to her forehead. I'm so stupid. You're being ridiculous and blowing this out of proportion. She looked up at him. I trusted you. You're my best friend. But all these years, you've been pissing a circle around me, claiming you want to protect me. That's all well and good. But who's been protecting me from you? Trenton didn't answer right away, his mouth drawing into a tight line and his body stiffly rejecting her words. You don't need protecting from me, he finally said in a grim tone. Yes, I do. I need protecting from you. I need to get away from you, your family, everything. Everything I've known. Because you know what? I don't know anything else. My life is too wrapped up in yours. I've been living my life for you. How sad is that? Me and Trent. Every story about any major event in her life began with those 3 words. I need to make my own memories without you being involved. Alannah marched back into the living room and headed for the front door. Where are you going? She turned to see Trenton staring at her, no longer happy, no longer smiling. Tension radiated from his body. Away from you. Chapter 28. Their relationship was still in a cool stage. In the past 2 weeks, they'd seen each other twice, once for lunch and another time when they'd attended a party together. Guarded and stilted, they barely touched. Alannah wasn't sure what she wanted to do. She didn't want to break up with him, but at the same time, she didn't think their relationship was a healthy one. When she received an invitation to go to Atlanta for the job interview, she sent a group text to Trenton, her family, and Terry. Her sisters and Terry texted back their congratulations right away, and her parents called to wish her well. She didn't hear from Trenton until that night. Congratulations. When is the interview? Monday. A full hour passed before he replied. Knock him dead. He wasn't trying to stop her, so she should be happy. Yet she wasn't. The doorbell rang. Alannah set the book she'd been reading on the coffee table and rolled off the couch. She peeked out the window, a little disappointed when she saw Terry. Of course it wouldn't be Trenton. He'd promised to give her space so she could make her own memories, and he was certainly sticking to his promise. Alannah opened the door. "Hey, honey, I hope you don't mind me stopping by unannounced." "No, come on in." They went into the living room, and Alannah pulled the fleece throw over her legs. "What are you reading?" Terry asked, brushing her hair from her face. Tonight her hair was parted in the middle. Alannah showed her the cover, a book that offers tips on how to ace an interview. They include sample questions and suggestions on how to answer them. "Oh." Terry folded her legs beneath her on the couch. "Listen, we need to talk about you and Trenton. You know I never understood your relationship with him. I've told you before I thought the two of you are weirdly codependent even though you were supposedly just friends." "Yes, I know. Where are you going with this?" "I only said that because I want to make it clear that what I'm about to say is completely without bias." Alannah waited. "Trenton's behavior sounds like a classic case of man logic." "And what is man logic?" Terry considered herself an expert on men, so her answer should be interesting. "Basically, a man does something so ridiculous it doesn't make sense to the average woman, but makes perfect sense to the man in question." She waited for the explanation to sink in before she continued. "He didn't mean to hurt you. That doesn't make what he did okay. I know that, and you know that, but in his own crazy way, he was keeping other men away from you, even though he wouldn't be with you and was nailing every piece of tail that shook her ass at him. But in man logic, that makes perfect sense, because he was keeping you for himself, and he didn't mean to hurt you." "That's cute. But if that's the case, man logic sucks. I know. It's the reason the world is so messed up today." A soft, sympathetic smile graced her features. "I'm still going to Atlanta. I have to see what other opportunities there are for me." Alannah picked at her fingernails. "I've made decisions around Trent all my life. It's sad, it's pathetic, and I don't want to do that anymore. Who knows what I've been missing out on because I've been so caught up in him? What if there's another man out there for me? Someone who I'm more in tune with?" "But you've had boyfriends over the years." "Yes. But have I really given them a chance when I've basically been in love with Trent my entire life? When he calls, I answer. When he needs me, I'm there. There's got to be something different. Someone different. In a new environment, I can explore my options in a way I haven't before because I won't be distracted by my feelings for Trent." Terry's eyes filled with sympathy and understanding. "If getting a job on the opposite side of the country is what you need to do to feel better, then do it. But, honey, I don't think that's going to make a difference. I've got to do something. Even if I don't feel better, at least I'll be living. Right?" "Yeah." But Terry's lackluster response didn't sound genuine. It sounded like she was saying what was necessary to make Alannah believe she'd made a sound decision. "If you get that job, I'm going to miss you, though. What about me?" She poked out her bottom lip. "I'll miss you too. But it'll be nice to see what it's like somewhere else." Alannah dog-eared a page in the book and closed it. "I've lived in Seattle all my life. It might be nice to start over. You know?" "I know. I had to do it once myself. That's why I left Atlanta." She clutched Alannah's hand. "Is it wrong that I hope you don't get the job?" "Yes, Terry." Her friend smiled. "In that case, good luck." October 16th. Alannah paused on the way out the door to answer her cell phone. "Alannah, hi, is Trent with you?" Ivy's worried voice came through the line. Alannah felt terrible. She'd hesitated for far too long on whether or not she should go to Trenton. She thought maybe he wouldn't want to see her, but hearing the anxiety in his sister's voice confirmed she was doing the right thing. "No, but I'm on my way to his place now." "Oh, good." Relief flooded Ivy's voice. In the background, she heard a male voice ask, "What did she say?" Ivy covered the mouthpiece and a muted conversation ensued before Cyrus's commanding voice came on the line. "As soon as you confirm he's at home, call Ivy or text her so we know he's all right. He hasn't answered his phone all evening. Ivy and I are out of town and so is Xavier. Mother's been trying to reach Trenton but can't. She's ready to go over there to check on him if need be." Trenton usually worked through the anniversary of his parents' death in his own way, which often meant that she spent as much time as she could with him. If the 16th fell on a workday, he took the day off, but whatever he did, his family never worried because they knew she and Trenton were together. They must know they were barely on speaking terms, and Trenton must really be suffering if he hadn't even returned the calls from his mother. Alannah exited her apartment. "Tell Miss Constance I'm on my way over there right now, and I'll send a text when I see him." "Thank you, Alannah." "No problem. I'll be in touch very soon." In the Lexus, she pressed the gas pedal to the floor and allowed the car to accelerate as much as she could without the risk of being pulled over for reckless driving. The fact that Trenton was unreachable worried her immensely. Just as she wasn't sure he wanted to hear from her, he obviously didn't feel comfortable calling her, even though she knew he hated spending the day alone. At the building, she rode the elevator up to his floor and entered the penthouse. When the doors slid open, the lights didn't automatically come on in the vestibule like they normally did. The interior of the condo was quiet and dark, but the distant hum of the television called her back to Trenton's bedroom. She walked down the hallway and past the open door to the music room where he practiced the violin in front of the sweeping views of the floor-to-ceiling windows. She found him propped against a bunch of pillows stacked along the metal bars of the bed, watching the movie Shaft. He knew the dialogue by heart, and so did she. It was a favorite of his father's, and they watched it every year. He didn't look up. "What are you doing here?" "It's October 16th. "So?" The television screen flashed light intermittently across his drawn face. "I'm not arguing with you." Alannah pulled out her phone and sent a text to his sister, letting her know she was at Trenton's and he was fine. A thank you was immediately returned. "What are you doing?" He looked at the phone in her hand. "Your family was worried and they called me. I sent a text to let them know you're all right. Do you have your phone on?" He returned his gaze to the television. "No." Alannah slipped off her shoes and tossed her coat and purse on one of the chairs in the room. She climbed into the bed and pulled the covers up to her waist. "How's your head?" She gently ran a hand across his forehead, over the top of his head and down his nape. "Okay." "Did you have to take anything?" He never failed to get a stress headache if he thought too much about that day. "Ibuprofen." After a while, he asked, "You staying the night?" He tried to sound nonchalant, pretending not to need her, but she knew him well enough to know that wasn't true. Despite the cool awkwardness between them, she couldn't let him be alone tonight of all nights. He managed to conceal his grief in recent years, but she'd never forget the year he'd been depressed and gotten stinking, sloppy drunk. The pain of his loss and the torment of the memories had been written on his face as clearly as the ink that marked his flesh. He'd been so wounded, so broken. She never wanted to see him like that again. She placed her head on his shoulder, and after a moment's hesitation, he laid his head on hers. "Yes, I'm staying the night." He visibly relaxed as tension eased from his body. The next morning, Alannah and Trenton stood in his kitchen drinking coffee. He rested a hip against the counter with the white mug in his hand, watching her. She hadn't slept so comfortably in a long time. Her thoughts never gave her any rest at night, but spending the night spooning with Trenton had put her mind at ease. He wore a pair of black bedroom slippers and black pajama bottoms and left his chest bare. Such an unjust act. He looked deliciously scruffy with a new growth of hair on his face and his hard chest and tatted arms exposed to her hungry eyes. She wanted to go over there and lean on him and rub his rough jaw. He would smell like Trenton and morning sleep and comfort. Holding tight to the mug in her own hand helped her resist the urge. "You're still leaving for Atlanta, aren't you?" he asked. She nodded. "It's a good opportunity." "So you said." "Because it is." He looked down into the mug of coffee and then looked back up at her with bleak eyes. "Why are you punishing me like this?" he asked in a strained voice. Alannah's heart hurt at the expression on his face. "I'm not punishing you. Like hell you're not. My decision has nothing to do with you. I want to find out more about the job. This is about me for a change." He stared down into his mug again, and the silence stretched between them to an almost untenable degree before he spoke. "I could pull some strings and get you a better job here." His eyes found hers, sorrowful and pain-filled. "Why don't I do that? I could talk to some people, or someone in my family is bound to know someone. We could try that research center the Johnson Foundation donates millions to every year. What's its name?" He double-snapped his fingers. "You know the one I'm talking about. I could get you a job in their lab. Or we could try a biotech company. Let me make some calls." "Trenton." Quiet descended on the room. He looked steadily at her. "Tell me the job you want, Alannah. I'll get it for you." She took a deep breath. "You're not listening." "I am listening." "No, you're not. I don't want you to buy me a job or use your name to get me one. I won't allow it." He set his mug down and gripped the edge of the counter. Muscles protruded from under his skin like thick ropes of cable wire. "What good is my name and money if I can't use them to hold on to the most important thing in my life?" A dart of pain grazed her heart. She placed her cup on the stove. She hadn't even tasted the coffee. The cup had been a prop to get her through the morning's awkwardness. She had to leave because his words were weakening her resolve. "I'm going to head out," she said, but didn't move. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. Misery hung over the room like an ominous cloud before a thunderstorm. What time do you leave on Monday? I don't leave on Monday, I leave tomorrow. His head whipped in her direction, his green eyes filled with surprise. You said your interview is on Monday. It is, but I booked my flight for Sunday. It's an afternoon flight nonstop to Atlanta. Were you going to tell me? Yes, of course. Alannah twisted her hands together. I'm going to crash at Jill's place and go to the interview on Monday. I'll be back on Wednesday. We haven't seen each other in years, so we're going to hang out a little bit. So that's it then. I can't change your mind? It's a great opportunity, she said again. This was the right decision for her, and she couldn't allow his feelings to factor into her decision-making. Alannah, I'm sorry, he said, making a last-ditch effort to change her mind. I'm really, really sorry. I know. No, you don't. You don't know how sorry I am. You don't know how much I regret what I did. I promise I'll make it up to you. Just give me a chance. His hands turned into fists, the tendons in his neck tightening. You know, I can't bear to be without you. But that's what you're threatening me with. You want to punish me? Fine. I'll do the time. But it can't be that. You can't leave me. Alannah briefly closed her eyes. Stop, please, she begged. She started to move away, but with a few long strides he was across the floor and grabbed her arm. You love me, don't you? You know I do, she said softly. He clasped her hands in both of his, naked pain and frustration marring his face. Okay then. I love you too. That's why I did those stupid things. It wasn't out of maliciousness, and it wasn't to hurt you. I know that's what I did, but it wasn't my intent. I lied because I love you. I've loved you almost all my life, and I didn't know how to deal with those feelings, that's all. But I know now. Give me another chance. You won't regret it. Shaking her head against the temptation to give in, she said, That's no excuse for what you did. You know that, Trent. Put yourself in my shoes. How would you feel if you knew I'd been secretly sabotaging you? I'd forgive you, he said without hesitation. I've forgiven you too. But that doesn't change the fact that I need to look into the program manager position. This has nothing to do with you. It's about me. Then you haven't really forgiven me. I have. But my decision can't be based on what you want. This is about me. I don't know how many more ways to tell you the same thing. His hands fell away to his sides, leaving her devoid of his warm touch. So I guess that's it. I guess so. I'll be seeing you. He turned away from her, walking back to the counter, and picked up his coffee. He took a sip, and when he set it down, his profile was hard and tight. Bye, Alannah whispered, suddenly unsure of her decision. Maybe leaving was the wrong choice to make, but if she didn't go, she'd never know for sure. Trenton didn't respond, his head bent and eyes trained on the counter. With nothing left to say, she quietly left his kitchen, left his penthouse, and headed home. Chapter 29. Seated in the leather chair in his office, Trenton stared out at the city. Practicing the violin for an hour last night hadn't offered any reprieve from his thoughts, so he'd come into work that morning to take his mind off Alannah's departure. Behind him, Dave, the eager as ever and verbose sales rep who happened to be working today too, the guy really needed to get a life, droned on and on about what he hoped to accomplish next year. He'd written up a detailed report of his experience at Munich's Oktoberfest, and had a bullet list 2 pages long of ideas and suggestions for improvement. Trenton hardly caught a word he said, and the fact that he wasn't even looking at him didn't slow Dave down. Trenton rubbed a hand across his jaw. He'd been hurt before, of course. Who hadn't? Back in college, a crush on a studious girl had ended when she told him in blunt terms that he was not her type. But the pain he'd experienced back then couldn't compare to the bone-crushing loss he felt now. Over the years, no matter whom he dated or slept with, Alannah remained the constant woman in his life. His rock. And he couldn't breathe without her. That simple. As if someone had hefted ballast on his chest and then sat on it for good measure. Trenton rubbed his sternum to ease the pressure, and the corners of his mouth lifted into a self-deprecating smirk. He'd always thought sappy crap like that was ridiculous when he heard people say it, yet he'd be damned if he didn't feel like he was suffocating. He swiveled around in the chair and stood. I have to go. Dave halted the rapid flow of words. Oh, should I leave you a copy of my ideas? Sure, and we can discuss them in more detail sometime this week. Get with my assistant tomorrow and have her slot you in for 30 minutes on my calendar. However, I have to get out of here right now. It's a bit of an emergency. Dave stood. That sounds great. Thanks, Dave. Trenton came around the desk and clapped him on the shoulder. You're doing an incredible job, and bringing you on board was one of the best decisions we've ever made. Dave beamed. Thank you, sir. No problem. Now I hate to kick you out, but I have to get out of here. He said it all with a smile. Gotcha. Dave walked ahead of him and Trenton clutched his keys. He'd do whatever it took to change Alannah's mind. He didn't have much of a plan except to beg her not to. Actually, he just planned to beg. On the ride to the airport, Trenton tried to reach Alannah. She had her phone turned off, but he stayed positive. He didn't know on which airline she'd booked a flight, but he narrowed down the choices once he figured out which ones had nonstop legs to Atlanta and which one she was most likely to take. He pulled into short-term parking at the airport and then hurried to the terminal. Quickly scanning the passengers, he didn't see her or the easy-to-recognize design of the Louis Vuitton luggage he'd gifted her a couple of years ago. Risking the anger of people in line, he walked up to the counter of the first airline he thought she might have taken and interrupted one of the ticket agents. He flashed the same easygoing smile that usually got him his way. Excuse me, I need to find out if there's a passenger scheduled to fly with you and whether or not she's checked in yet. The woman looked up at him but immediately looked back down at the computer screen. I'm sorry, sir, but we can't divulge that information. Trenton was pretty sure if she wasn't so busy, that first try would have gone better. He laughed, resting an elbow on the counter and affecting a friendly, relaxed pose, trying to come across as less panicked than he felt. I realize there must be some kind of confidentiality laws or something that have to be adhered to, but this is an emergency. I just need to know if she's checked in or not, that's all. The agent handed the passenger at the counter a boarding pass, and the man walked away. Mr. Johnson, he answered quickly. Trenton Johnson. Blank stare. Did she not know who he was? Mr. Johnson, we have a line. He'd literally met the one woman in Seattle he couldn't charm. Today, of all days. Trenton stood up straight and his jaw firmed. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my family is? He never before pulled the Johnson card and sounded like a self-important ass, but he didn't give a shit. He needed information. Now. They locked eyes. Should I? She asked. Trenton clenched his teeth. I want to speak to your supervisor. Now. Whoever you think you are, I'll help you, Mr. Johnson. The young woman at the next terminal smiled nervously, blue eyes darting between him and her coworker. Trenton's gaze dropped to her name tag. Her name was Lola. What are you doing? The other agent hissed. He's a member of the Johnson family, Lola said from the corner of her mouth, as if Trenton couldn't hear her. They own restaurants and Johnson Brewing Company. They employ thousands of people and donate millions to charity every year. I think we can make an exception. She flashed a wide smile at Trenton. Which passenger did you need me to check on? Trenton slanted a glance at the other agent's red face before giving Lola his undivided attention. Alannah Bailey. He spelled her first and last name. She was scheduled to go out on a flight to Atlanta, but I don't know which one. Not a problem. One moment, please. Her fingers ran across the keyboard in a series of rapid clicks. I see she was scheduled to leave on the 2:30 flight to Atlanta, and she did check in. Trenton glanced at the clock behind the ticket counter. 2:40. Damn. Alannah was already on her way to the job interview that was a great opportunity. He should have left the office earlier. If he had, he might have caught her and been able to talk her out of going. No doubt she'd get the job once she impressed the interviewers with her intelligence and knowledge. The crushing, suffocating feeling returned full force. Trenton ran a hand over his head. Thank you, he mumbled. He shoved his hands into his coat pockets and trudged toward the exit. Outside, the cool air hit him in the face, and he stopped for a moment, trying to catch his breath. He looked left, right. And that was when he saw her, seated on a metal bench in a heather gray peacoat, hands folded in her lap, and a Louis Vuitton rolling carry-on beside her. The invisible band that had tightened around his chest loosened a fraction, and Trenton gratefully dragged fresh, cool air into his lungs. He walked over to the bench and sat next to Alannah. Neither of them said anything. They watched passengers disembark from vehicles and new arrivals pile luggage into the trunks of cars. Alannah looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. What are you doing here? You should have the experience you want. Away from me. I know that. But I still couldn't let you go without making one more effort to change your mind. He took her smaller hand in both of his. Why didn't you leave? She shifted her gaze to the passengers being dropped off and picked up. I checked in and then thought, why waste their time? Why waste my time when I already know that if they offer me the job, I won't accept it? Because it'll take me away from you. Slowly, she shook her head. I couldn't do it. I couldn't leave. No matter where I go, to the other side of the country or even to the other side of the world, my heart belongs to you. I don't want to be any place you aren't. Right here with you is where I want to be. He squeezed her cool fingers between his. I really do regret what I did. I know. He ran a fingertip over her middle finger, from the nail to the knuckle. I used to think the worst thing that ever happened to me was seeing my mother kill my father and then turn the gun on herself. But I recovered from that. It took a long time, but I did. I even got a new family, new friends, and a new life to help me cope. But if I lose you," his voice thickened, "if I lose you, if I don't have you in my life, I don't think I can recover. There's no coping, no getting by, no I'll be okay, because no one can ever take your place, Lana. Women are everywhere but you. You're different. You're special. You're my best friend, and I need you in my life." "Why do you have to say stuff like that?" She dropped her head on his shoulder, and he inhaled the familiar scent of her hair and skin. He smiled. "I say stuff like that because it's true." Trenton bent his head to hers, and they bumped noses. Her eyes smiled into his. "It's true," he repeated, his voice thick with emotion. "You're irreplaceable. I love you. You believe me, don't you?" "I do," she sighed. "You and your crazy man logic." "My what?" "Nothing." She smiled with her lips, her eyes, her entire face. "Just kiss me." Happy to oblige, Trenton pressed his mouth against her soft, cool lips. When she leaned into him, he cupped her jaw in his hand and deepened the connection, barely holding back from ravishing her right there on the sidewalk. When their lips separated, he stroked her jaw with his thumb. Looking deeply into her eyes, he asked, "No regrets?" "No regrets. I realized that I made my decision a long, long time ago. I chose you, Trent. I'll always choose you." Trenton kissed the palm of her hand. He could smell the candy apple sanitizer, arguably the most alluring scent in the world, solely because it represented Alannah. Standing, he picked up her suitcase. "Ready?" He extended his hand. "Yes." She closed her fingers around his and rose to her feet, and followed behind him, the way she'd always done, ever since they were 8 years old. Chapter 30. Trenton trailed Alannah up the stairs and set her suitcase in the closet. Then he turned his attention to the woman he loved. She stood in the middle of the room, silently watching him. He walked over and proceeded to slowly undress her, taking the time to release each button on her coat. He tossed it aside and then lowered to his haunches to remove her shoes. Once she'd stepped out of them, he slipped the long-sleeved blouse over her head. Pants, socks, and underwear followed. Then it was her turn to undress him. "I guess we'll always be stuck with each other," he said. "Is that how you feel? Stuck?" She unzipped his pants. "Nah." He tilted her head up so he could see her eyes. "Does it ever scare you? To need someone so much?" She paused with her fingers on the middle button of his shirt. "Yes. Does it scare you?" "A little. But we can be scared together." He grinned. She grinned back. "Considering everything we've been through over the years, I think we can handle this." Agreed. They fell onto the bed and their naked bodies wrapped around each other. Comfortable. Familiar. "We haven't made love since before I left for Colorado," Trenton reminded her. He said the words against her arched throat, his fingers strumming her clit as deftly as he did the strings of the violin. "That's cruel and unusual punishment. It's unconstitutional." Her laughter was breathless and husky, and utterly content, a sound that he wanted to hear many more times to come. He made love to her in an unrushed, leisurely fashion. Taking his time, he let his fingers sweep over her soft hair and skin, leaving not an inch of flesh untouched. His tongue traced the line of vertebrae from the small of her back to the base of her neck, and his mouth savored the moisture of desire between her legs until she cried out, trembling, and clamped her thighs around his head. When their bodies joined together, she allowed him deeper than she ever had, crossing her ankles high up on his back. Her forearms tightened around his neck and held him close, and his eardrums filled with the sound of her whimpers and breathless pants. She climaxed and he groaned, burying his face in her neck, the tremors that shook her body echoing within him as he released. He whispered the first words that came to mind, the only words he could say after such an intense orgasm, and the relief of holding on to the love of his life. "Love you so much, Alannah." Then he took a deep breath, and the remaining tightness in his chest completely dissipated. The ringing phone broke through Alannah's sleep, and she felt the loss of heat as Trenton rolled away from her. He slapped his hand along the table in the dark and finally found the phone. "Hello?" He was quiet for a bit, and then he sounded alarmed when he said, "What? And you're just now calling me?" Alannah rolled to face him. "What is it?" she asked, still groggy from sleep. Daniela went into early labor 8 hours ago, Trenton whispered. He put the phone on speaker. At first they thought it was another false alarm, Ivy explained. Then they wanted to wait until she was properly dilated before calling anyone. She's in the delivery room now. Our nephew will be here any minute. Trenton swung his legs over the side of the bed. We're on our way. You don't have to rush. Come when you're ready. We'll be there soon. He and Alannah dressed while she chattered excitedly about the baby. No surprise, since she loved babies and spoiled her niece and nephews rotten. Now she'd have another baby to love on. By the time they arrived at the hospital, Michael Andrew had already made his appearance. Flowers and balloons filled the large room where the family was located, in a private wing reserved for celebrity and high-profile births. Phone pressed to her ear, Ivy waved hello as she updated her fiancé, Lucas, who stayed at home with their daughter. Daniela, looking drained, greeted them with a wan smile and waved from the bed. Cyrus sat in a chair, holding her hand and talking quietly to her. With Xavier still out of town, the only other immediate family member missing was Gavin. Alannah figured because of his limited mobility he decided to stay at home. She went over to the bassinet where the family matriarch, Constance Johnson, stood over her new grandson. As always, the older woman wore a tailored designer dress and her shoulder-length hair was perfectly styled without a strand out of place. He's adorable, Alannah whispered, so as not to wake the baby. Yes, he is. How are you? Constance asked. She searched Alannah's face and shot a quick glance across the room at Trenton. I see everything is back to normal. Yes, ma'am. Alannah's cheeks heated with color. Good. She patted Alannah's hand. Less than an hour after their brief exchange, 4 more people arrived, 2 men and 2 women. She knew Hudson Lynch, the Johnson family spokesperson. His PR firm handled all their media relations. He had striking blue eyes and sported a fake tan, with his long hair pulled back into a ponytail. She soon learned that the other man was a photographer, and the 2 women a hairstylist and makeup artist. Alannah watched in amazement as the stylist whipped Daniela's hair into a tame style that fell over one shoulder, looking sleek and neat but not overdone. The makeup artist worked the same magic on her face, using concealer and neutral colors to give her a fresh-faced look that didn't appear made up. When they'd completed their work, Constance carefully lifted the baby from the bassinet and handed him to Daniela. The photographer proceeded to take a slew of photos, close-ups of the baby, pictures of Daniela and the baby, photos of Cyrus, Daniela and the baby, and even photos of the entire group gathered together. Having been close with the family for so long, Alannah knew the purpose of everything they did was not only to capture the moment for the family. They would release official photos to the press so as to avoid the feeding frenzy that could ensue when media outlets jockeyed to get the first pictures of the newest addition to the Johnson family. Okay, that's enough, Cyrus said. He stood over his wife, his concerned gaze resting on her strained face. Just a few more, Hudson said. That's enough, Cyrus said again, this time speaking directly to their spokesperson. My wife needs to rest, just like my son is doing. You have plenty of pictures. You should be able to find something usable among all of those. Hudson nodded. All right, let's go. He waved his hand in a circle above his head, and the 3 who'd arrived with him started packing up. You're fine with the statement I'll be releasing? He asked Cyrus. Yes, that's fine. Within seconds, they were gone. We're going to leave too, Trenton said. He walked over to Alannah and put an arm around her shoulders. Congratulations, you 2. I'll come with you, Ivy said. They all said their goodbyes, and they left Constance, Cyrus, Daniela, and baby Michael in the room. I'm surprised they didn't name the baby Cyrus, Alannah said, as they waited at the elevator. I'm not, Trenton said. Me either, Ivy added. Really? I thought for sure that there'd be a Cyrus III. There's a lot of responsibility attached to the name Cyrus Johnson, Trenton said. The elevator doors slid open and the 3 of them entered the cab. I think he wanted to give his son some different choices. Trenton let himself into Alannah's townhouse. His nephew was 7 days old, and he and Alannah had gone by the house to see Daniela and the baby. Afterward, they'd gone their separate ways to run errands, and Trenton had stopped at home to shower and change into the long-sleeved shirt and navy slacks he wore under his coat. On the way to the stairs, Angel rushed out of her cage and trotted over to him. He bent down and patted her head. Hey there, Angel. How you doing, girl? She let out an excited bark and turned in a circle. Tail wagging, she bounced up on her hind legs and looked up at him expectantly. I can't play with you all night, he said, rubbing the dog's head and around her ears. Your mommy and I are going to the underground. Trenton left the Yorkie and climbed the stairs 2 at a time. As he neared the open bedroom door, he heard Vibrant Thing by Q-Tip playing. He came to a stop in the doorway. Even with her out-of-rhythm dancing, Alannah still looked sexy as she applied the finishing touches of her makeup. Tonight she wore a white Donna Karan blouse with a deep V neckline. With her small breasts, there was no cleavage, and a thin white gold necklace settled on her chest. High-waisted black trousers and black shoes with a short heel completed the outfit. No more pretending that high heels were her thing. She told him she admired women who wore them, but admitted they hurt her feet and she had to concentrate too much when she walked. She'd save them for special occasions. He'd opened accounts for her at several high-end stores, and she'd taken Terry shopping with her. After the trip, she made a big deal of expressing how much she appreciated his generosity, which he found amusing. Based on the bills he'd received, she hadn't spent much. He'd bought her gifts before, but he suspected it would take time for her to get used to having him give her gifts as a lover. Overwhelmed by his love for her, he walked over and pulled her into his arms. He kissed her. Hard. "You're going to kiss off all my lipstick," she muttered, kissing him back and flicking her tongue over his mouth. "You don't have more?" He reclaimed her lips, drinking from their sweetness and savoring the texture of their lushness. "I do, but—" She kissed him. "Okay then." He kissed her again. They kissed, and their mouths devoured each other. His lips moved down to her neck. "Should I give you a hickey?" "Don't you dare!" She slapped his arm and twisted to face the mirror again. Trenton folded his hands over her stomach and watched her reapply her lipstick. "Did you get through with your application?" Alannah had decided to get a Master of Science in Molecular Biosciences to increase her chances for advancement in her field. "Almost. I'm waiting on one more recommendation to come in before I submit it. We're going to have to spend every night together from now on until you start classes. Once you start, you won't have much time between studying and work." "Every night?" Alannah looked at him in the mirror, amusement in her eyes. "Yes, every night." He pulled her tight against him so she could feel his rising erection. "Don't you want to wake up next to this every morning?" "That's not what I'm worried about." She brought a hand to his face and rubbed his cheek. "I hope I don't get tired of seeing your ugly mug every day." "Funny, I was just thinking the same thing about you." "Oh, really?" "Yeah, really. Meanie." She twisted in his arms and gave him a quick peck on the lips. Trenton placed a moist kiss to the skin exposed by the revealing neckline and growled. He lifted his head and sighed heavily. "We better get out of here before I have you naked and we never leave." "Would that be so terrible?" she teased. "Yes, it would. I already texted the frat that I'd be there, so I want to keep my promise." Devin had broached the topic of he, Trenton, and another frat brother opening clubs like the Underground in Atlanta, Georgia, and Charlotte, North Carolina, where Devin had contacts. "You ready?" he asked. "Almost." Alannah scurried over to a table in the corner and turned off the music. With a happy grin on her face, she placed her hand in his. "Ready." They walked into the Underground holding hands. Whenever Trenton stopped and spoke to anyone, he continued to hold Alannah's hand, or left an arm around her waist. Even when he greeted other women, he didn't let her go, giving them one-armed hugs so he could maintain his hold on her. Alannah didn't shrink back like she used to. In fact, she stuck out her hand first and introduced herself, smiling and making direct eye contact. They eventually made their way to their reserved table and sat together listening to the musicians before he was called away to the bar. He excused himself and left her alone, planning to wrap up the meeting as soon as possible. He, Devin, and their frat brother discussed the particulars of the club and the potential spots in each city where they could open them. Trenton would put up the majority of the money. "Sounds good, but of course I'll need to see everything in writing, like when we open this place," he said. Devin nodded. "Of course. Wanted to make sure you were interested first. We'll put a plan together over the next few weeks." "Perfect." They all shook hands. Trenton's other frat brother looked in the direction of where he'd been sitting with Alannah. "Hey, isn't that you, man?" Trenton's eyes traveled to the table, and he saw a man bent over, speaking to Alannah. She shook her head and smiled politely, but he didn't give up. He whispered in her ear again, hand braced on the back of her chair, standing way too close. Trenton tensed, wanting to barge over there and tell the guy to get the hell away from her. But he held fast. She laughed, shook her head again, and the guy finally left. She lifted her gaze, and when she saw him looking, she smiled and gave a little wave. The tension left his body. He was the luckiest man in the world, and he knew it. She belonged to him, not in an archaic, proprietary way, but as part of a whole. They belonged to each other. Always had. He smiled back at her and answered his frat brother's question truthfully and without reservation. "Yeah, that's me."